Hello and welcome to Fintech Focus TV with me, Toby, and delighted to be joined today by James from Ascendant Strategy. James, great to see you.
Thanks, good morning.
Thanks for coming in. So, look, listen, well done, first and foremost. You have made the list of the definitive list of the most influential fintechs of 2019. Great achievement. We've been joined by some of the biggest names in finance to help define this list. From Barclays through to Lloyds, through to Simmons & Simmons, through to a whole bevy of companies who've come through there. And as I said, 2,000 plus companies were considered, 175 made the list. You guys have done brilliantly to get on there, and it sounds like a really exciting time for the company. Can you tell everyone a little bit about what you do and how you've done it and the story of the company?
Sure, great, thanks. So Ascendant Strategy is a consultancy business which is focused really on solving challenges around transformation and complexity for capital markets firms. Our focus is on the post-trade part of the organisation, so traditionally that covers areas such as middle and back office. And really our combined offering looks at probably two critical parts of that. The first is the technology angle, which obviously is very relevant to the award. But what we also look to do is bring in the business process part as well. So really looking to help organisations solve some of their challenges using technology as enablement, but also understanding how to transform their business model alongside it. Quite often we see organisations focusing solely on the technology and not necessarily understanding the business model challenges that exist alongside it, or vice versa, where there may well be a process-driven change that doesn't necessarily appreciate the technology side.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point, isn't it? Because we're seeing a lot more collision of tech and business, and look, it's not a new thing. Tech's been sort of going closer and closer and closer to the forefront of every strategy, full stop anyway. But you're starting to see a lot more collaboration, are you, between?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, much is written about the complexity that exists in the post-trade environment of banks. So we won't talk about that today, but clearly a lot of organisations have quite bespoke, very heavily customised infrastructure that has been developed over time, perhaps through merger and acquisition or the evolution of a business model. That can be very hard to solve in one simple go in terms of finding an off-the-shelf solution to plug into it. So being able to find the right types of technology and be able to align those to the right type of problem statement is really, really quite key. And I think I would say probably 5 years ago, the concept of rip and replace was quite common.
Yeah.
People would look to try and take all of the complexity away and bolt something in. That has probably been unsuccessful for most people.
Yeah.
There have been some successes. And I think now the realisation that the uniqueness of each organisation actually needs quite a unique and tailored solution to it.
Yeah.
And to your point, what we're now starting to see, certainly in the fintech space, is organisations bringing solutions that maybe can solve just part of it. So we talk about componentised technology a lot in this industry, but rather than coming in and trying to say we can solve the whole problem, we're actually just going to come and solve part of it. And I think we're seeing a real mindset change now around decision makers, certainly within the post-trade space, understanding that there is no silver bullet. So actually being quite sensible, quite pragmatic around what types of technology you can use to solve some of your problems. And actually, interestingly, what types of technology sometimes you just have to leave alone and just understand that maybe the real core of your books and records, if it's very old, relatively cheap, quite easy to maintain and manage going forward, actually you just leave that there and then you kind of transform around it. So that's to your point around the collaboration point, that's quite interesting, I think, where we're seeing decision makers being quite open to working with multiple vendors. They don't have to just go with one. And certainly what we're finding is being able to connect those vendors and then obviously then help the organisation transform themselves is somewhere where we're starting to talk to a lot of people about.
It's very interesting, that, isn't it? Because there have been mass products which solve everyone's ills, etc., and that generally they haven't been particularly successful. And I think where you've seen real traction is businesses that sort of focus in and have that laser sharp focus on what their strategy is, on what they can help, and actually solving problems. And if I look at this and I look at some of the themes for the last two sets of listings that we've done in the Financial Technologist magazine, very clear themes have emerged that the companies that have really stood out, the companies that have really shone, are solving genuine problems. I think there's something there where you see a lot of fintechs go in and solve issues that are very, very clever and very smart as products, but they aren't necessarily the products which people need. And I guess that's a lot of what you have to wade through as a business as well, right?
Yeah, I mean there's some fantastic technology out there. which actually is almost overtaking the solution.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's almost too advanced for the problem it's trying to solve.
Yeah.
And quite often we see that frustration where you have a vendor who has actually a very cutting-edge product, but actually the problem statement that the client has is quite often a lot lower tech than that.
Yeah.
So you quite often get this disconnect between the two. Where there are some quite interesting organisations within the list this year that we know quite well are certainly there are some in there which are very good at being able to provide standardisation, translation, some of those kind of interfacing type words, where you have got a lot of quite customised and complex architecture that sits downstream, but the ability to be able to sit in the middle and provide a translation layer that other technology solutions can actually plug into is starting to become quite an interesting theme. And certainly some of those organisations are getting a lot of resonance with clients when they're talking to them, because they can understand actually that I can leave the really, really complex stuff, but actually almost innovating on top and around is maybe a more sensible solution.
Yeah. James, your business was spoken about really highly throughout the judging, and I think a lot of that is around seeing what some of the criteria for this list is all about, really. And I think a lot of that is making things simple, and businesses that do make things simple, and businesses that are solving genuine problems, but also the quality of people around it, quality of team, quality of solution, and structure of how they're doing. People are looking at various things about how easy things are to do at the moment, how cheap things are to do at the moment, and how quick things can be, are genuine themes of some of the companies out there. When you think about why the judges would have identified you in your business, what sort of things come to mind as to why you've done so well on the list?
You know, one of the things that we pride ourselves on is being very clear around what we do, and we're also very clear with people around what we don't. So our core focus really is providing transformational support for the post-trade environment within capital markets firms. We cover technology and business process as part of that, and there are really kind of two core components to our offering. The first is really strategy definition for an organisation. That could be trying to solve a problem statement, or it could be necessarily trying to use technology to enable some of their goals. And then the second part around that is execution of that. A lot of organisations are, as I said earlier, very complex, and they have a very different group of stakeholders within them who need to be on board for a transformation journey. We could have a COO who has a pure cost objective. We could have a head of compliance whose focus actually is around ensuring that nothing goes wrong and ensuring that obligations are met. They are two very different mindsets, and quite often what we talk to people around when people ask us how we can help is our view that we can help the language of the decision makers. So we can understand the cost objective, but also understand that needs to be delivered in a way that ensures that an organisation is safe and compliant. They're two quite often different views and two quite potentially fractious relationships. And again, a lot of what we bring is our experience around being able to help navigate organisations on that journey. Some of that is around pace of change, some of that is around understanding a risk appetite, and some of that is also being quite pragmatic and practical in the way that you lead execution. So we see that as quite a niche for us. And again, one of the things that we're really pleased about being recognised is the judges recognising that it's not just technology solution providers who are influential within the fintech space.
Absolutely.
It's people like ourselves who can kind of help enable and lead some of that transformation.
Take the whole journey forward. Yeah, look, I think if I'm looking at that alongside there, the simplicity and focus is absolutely key. You mentioned niche, within that. Another thing I always think of is what area people are in. So when we look at these listings, you'll quite often see trends about the sort of areas which you're talking about. And when we had the event to launch the magazine, one of the things was talked about was that post-trade space and the innovation that's expected in that this year. Tell us about that and why it's such a ripe area for innovation at the moment.
I mean, I would say if you probably looked at a lot of industry commentary over the last 10 years post-crisis, there's been a lot of discussion around the changing dynamic of the business, the pressure on margins, cost-income ratios, and the costs that exist within effectively the middle and back office of banks. It's seen as relatively high, but due to its complexity, is very, very sticky. So I think various ways have been explored around trying to provide solutions for that, but actually none of them have been so successful that they've been able to develop a transformational trend or theme. So I'll give you a really good example. Organisations probably 7 or 8 years ago were very energised around the concept of post-trade utilities, this concept of banks collaborating and providing kind of common market infrastructure. The economies of scale that would deliver would obviously reduce cost, would obviously reduce change and running costs internally for organisations, and could be seen as that transformational lever. That's actually been hard to execute. And if you look at the track record of a lot of these industry initiatives, they've either been quite slow or stopped. And there are some really, really good reasons for that. Some of that is collaboration around being able to bring everybody to the same page, around getting consensus around what that solution looks like. Some of it is, regulatory, I should say, regulatory compliance that needs to be supported, and just general nervousness around, can you fit your very customised, bespoke process into something which is quite a standardised industry venture?
Yeah.
And again, quite often that's quite a leap of faith for organisations to take. I think over time you will probably see those solutions developing, but I think one of the kind of key themes to your point around why there's so much interest is the problem hasn't been solved really for the last decade. So organisations continue to look at what is quite a sticky fixed cost in their post-trade, in terms of it's quite hard to get rid of. But actually, what are some of the solutions that can come in and maybe make an impact or be impactful within there? I think, kind of to my earlier point, the concept of trying to rip the whole thing out, sticking something in to replace it, is very difficult and expensive and quite often unsuccessful to do. So there's a lot of interest now in exploring maybe slightly more practical or maybe slightly more component-based approaches to solving some of the problems. So to give you a use case there, as an organisation, rather trying to solve a problem around costs for their entire middle and back office, maybe they look at a solution that just solves their collateral management cost. So actually the collateral management process within an organisation, can you look to try and drive optimization and consolidation of technology through just that one process? If you can be successful around that, you may well then start looking at other parts of your organisation. It could be reference data or it could be settlements processing. And I think that the urge, I would say, or the interest from banks around trying to solve that problem is getting increasingly stronger. As we see return on equity being pressurised. We read a lot of things in the press currently here in Europe around the amount of money that banks have had to spend on Brexit, as an example, where reconfiguring some of their entity structures. So all of this is just additive to cost, where you don't necessarily have any revenue that's necessarily going to grow and support it. So that increases that pressure, and I think you probably have maybe your 2 or 3 big global wholesale organisations who will continue to justify their innovation internally and continue to develop their own solutions. But for everybody else, at some stage, they're going to need to find an alternative solution. So I think that's a big chunk of why there continues to be interest. No one has that silver bullet, but people are now, I think, recognising that silver bullet doesn't exist, and are now exploring ways of maybe being a little bit more pragmatic or a bit more practical with how they solve some of their problems.
It's a really interesting situation, isn't it? And again, I think cost drives so much innovation in fintech at the moment, doesn't it? And for such ever more complex and ever expanding sort of issues and pressures that institutions are facing. So companies who are really innovating around that space are thriving. It puts you guys in a great position to help with those transformations, I guess.
It does, and I think it's interesting. I mean, we have one client that we've been doing some work with for several years now, who were very focused on providing capital market solutions in the post-trade environment, but at a strategic level, there'd been a discussion around, was capital markets a business to go and look to grow a business in, given that obviously everybody reads revenues are dropping, return on equity is falling, and actually was that a sensible place to start? And I think to your point, our discussion with them was around the cost drivers are becoming increasingly overpowering for so many firms that actually does create an opportunity. So it's less an obvious growing market in terms of the market is growing and there's an opportunity to sell solutions in there. It's more actually that increasing level of cost pressure is starting to force people to realise that they can no longer maintain and operate a lot of their technology and their platforms in-house. They're going to have to look for solutions in the market. So again, that creates an interesting dynamic, I think, for a lot of solution providers in the market right now around being able to feed off some of that pressure.
Definitely. So we've spoken about the future of the industry. Let's finish by talking about the future of you guys and what's next for the business?
Well, I think part of it is really extending on a lot of the work we did last year. I think, as I touched on earlier, we've really started to get a lot of traction with both clients around organisations looking for help around their transformation, and increasingly around the fintechs themselves, who are now starting to seek us out, come and talk to us around how can we help enable some of their transformation in-house. A lot of the technologists, a lot of the technology solutions we see are very, very innovative, but are quite often technology-led. So understanding the complexity, some of the politics and some of the challenges around, how do you successfully enable transformation within a large organisation is quite challenging for these guys, unsurprisingly, because it's not really within the DNA. So that's been really interesting for us, and it's been refreshing for us to be kind of sought out by a lot of these organisations coming to us for help. So really looking to kind of help drive some of those agendas. You know, we're increasingly seeing, you know, some interesting themes as we go into 2019. A lot of hype has been talked around blockchain for the last couple of years.
Yeah.
We're now starting to see a couple of credible use cases of organisations being able to come out with something proven that could be quite transformational. There continues to be a lot of hype around that as a software solution.
It's still yo-yos every day.
Exactly. But there's some quite interesting stories starting to emerge from there. And again, I think as organisations look to really start to move the needle around how do they make their business model fit for purpose for the next 5 years, you know, technology is going to be a key part of that enablement. So for us, being able to continue to help people think about how they develop a strategy and then leverage the technology to execute on it is going to be a key thing for us as we go forward.
Brilliant. Well, James, congratulations. It sounds like it's a really exciting time for you and the business.
Thank you.
How can people get in touch with you?
Well, clearly they can obviously go and see our details on the Financial Technologist that's been published online. But no, we're on Twitter, we're on LinkedIn, we also have our own website, so people can look up Ascendant Strategy Limited. You know, we come up very highly on the Google rankings.
There you go.
And so people can always kind of pick us up from there.
Well, please do get in touch. Thank you so much for your time today. It's really great to see you.
Thanks.
Congratulations again on the ranking. And thank you all for watching. We'll see you soon on another episode of Fintech Focus TV very soon. Cheers. Bye now.
Thank you.